Okay, we're rocking and rolling with Tobin. Tobin's a runner, so we're getting him warmed up with some calf work. We'll transition later to the Smith machine because we realize that this setup is less than efficient. But basically, we're putting him in a deep dorsiflexed position, heel hanging down as far as it can go until he feels a maximum stretch. And then we're just really slowly, concentrically contracting out of that position. It's a calf raise, okay? Try and make it all fancy. It's a calf raise, all right? Right there, I flashed the camera towards another member, and he casually threatens to strangle me. So I'm not going to do that anymore. We're laughing because we're wondering if he's going to actually strangle me. Okay, so now we got Tobin. We started him off with that straight leg dorsiflexed position, and now we've got him in a bent knee dorsiflexed position, okay? So the ankle works very differently. The tissues of the shank, which is the lower leg, the calf, they work very differently depending on if the knee is straight or flexed. And so I really like this position for emphasizing the Achilles tendon, emphasizing the inferior portion of the posterior calf, so the lower portion of the back part of the calf. And Tobin's got a 10-pound weight on his knee. It's going to help him push forward a little bit, but he did not even need that weight because he was feeling a stretch prior to the addition of said weight. He's probably telling me right now, I felt the stretch prior to the addition of this weight. And we're having him hang out here, so we need a passive stretch. That's a prerequisite, okay? The passive stretch is prerequisite, and then we're going to have him gas pedal down, which is going to put the active portion of the stretch into play, also called PAILS, Progressive Angular Isometric Loading. Shout out Dr. Andrea Spina. And then we're doing some concentric eccentric work, this time on a slant board. Again, still not my favorite setup because ideally we would have his heel, we would have his foot in that maximally dorsiflex position, but also with a good amount of added load to it. So right now he's using his hands on the edges of the stall bars to kind of pressure down and add some load, but it's not sufficient. It's basically, if you don't add enough load, you're not going to get the adaptation that you need to get. So we're having him switch sides here, and we might just skip forward a little bit. Okay, now we're back in this kneeling position. It's a challenging position for a lot of people. Tobin has the prerequisite mobility to do this, but for a lot of people, this is so we've got this passive stretch here. The knee is maximally pushed forward. The heel is maximally, the heel is not leaving the ground. You should feel a big stretch on the back of the heel here, maybe even up the, basically halfway up the back of the calf. And then after a passive stretch, we're going to have him gas pedal down, which is going to accentuate the stretch. And he's probably saying, oh, what an accentuated stretch I have. Ha, ha, ha. I'm Tobin. He never says that, by the way. He never says, I'm Tobin. And then we're going to do the opposite, which is going to be to try to lift the toes and pull the top of the foot towards the front of the shin, which, it could either lift the toes or, depending on the intention, it could kind of pull his shin deeper into that stretch. And then pretty soon we are going to fix the straight leg dorsiflex, the straight knee dorsiflex position that we set up here by heading downstairs to the Smith machine. And the thing I like about the Smith machine is when you get one of these step ups and you're on the Smith machine, you have that 20-pound bar that's pressing you basically straight down. So you've got full body weight. You don't need to do any finagling. of position and you've got a 20-pound bar pressing you down, and then if the 20 pounds isn't enough, then you can add 10 pounds on each side, 20 pounds on each side until it is enough basically, and then you can start to feel that stretch. All right, so basically we're taking him into that deep dorsiflex position, and then we're having him press super slow out of it, trying to create sort of a pre-tension state at the bottom, a sort of a readiness to move, if you will, before he actually grinds his way out of that. I don't want him to pop out of that. He's actually moving nice and slow here. He's moving nice and slow here, which I love. You know, we spend so much time moving slowly, and then you get into a gym and you're conditioned to think that you have to move explosively and look super athletic. Well, you know, oftentimes that underlying that is very little control of your movement patterns. So you're only controlling really 20% of the movement, and it ends up making for a very incongruous movement, a very discombobulated movement that just doesn't look natural. And so you get sort of a weekend at Bernie's kind of situation where you're walking around all floppy and, you know, you're doing lunges, but they don't look right. And so with a lot of training, we really focus on how it looks. We focus on movement quality, because if you can take something hard and make it look easy, you've won the game, right? If you take something that's hard and it looks hard and it looks like you're struggling and it looks like you're all over the place and it looks like you're having a hard time, guess what? You know, you got some improvement to do. You got to build your movement brain. You have to build the neurological impulses or the neurological mechanisms, and then so you have to build the neurological mechanisms, and then in order for the periphery to receive the mechanisms and perform, you need good anatomical structures, and those can also be built. So in a second here, I'm going to zoom in on Tobin's leg because he's got the shakes. He's got the shakes. And that means that we found a spot and a movement at an intensity, at a duration, and a time under tension where he's weak. And this is where training happens, right? Training happens where you're weak, not necessarily where you're always strong. It's better, in my opinion, to shore up your major deficiencies than it is to just always do stuff that you're good at. Look, he's having a hard time keeping this knee locked in with the calf movement. It's beautiful. We love to see difficulty. We love to see challenge. Okay, this is how we grow as people, and this is how we get better at movement. All right. Okay, it's single leg RDL madness time. And so we've elevated his front foot because we've loaded his arm with a little kettlebell. It's about 12, 15 pounds, so that he has an extra load that's going to pull him deeper into that RDL, give him something to resist against at the bottom. And I'm basically saying, hey, just go down and hold. And then you got a little hand for support there so you don't topple over. It's a really challenging hamstring thing. It's a really challenging thing for the foot. It's a really challenging thing for the calf. It's a really challenging move for the entire posterior chain, especially when you go deeper. Not a lot of people will stand up on a box or an elevated surface and basically drop their hand below the floor. We got some shakies. We love to see the shakies, all right? That means that training is happening, all right? I love the shakies. And I'm going to talk about it now. I'm going to talk about it in the future. I'm never going to stop talking about how important it is to find an area of a movement where you're quivering or shaking or whatever and hold it there. And then we caught just the tail. I forgot to film. We caught just the tail end of him doing these knee extensions where we're just doing isometrics, right? And I'm saying distribute the load, right? Do 60-40 with your left, right, or 40-60 with your left, right. Okay, make the legs work differently because the legs are two different things, right? And that's going to wrap up this video. Thank you, Tobin, for being on the video. Thank you, Peak, for being my place of employment. And thank you, people, for watching this video.